This morning we look in Exodus chapter 1. We flow down into the second chapter and we look at a very serious situation that has arisen and an innovative solution to something that could be tragic. The Bible says in Exodus chapter 1, beginning with verse 22 and following, "Then Pharaoh," that is Thutmose the first, "commanded all his people, 'Every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live.' Now a man from the house of Levi, Amram, went and took his wife, Jehoiada, a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she took for him a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the river bank. And his sister, that is Miriam, stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river while her young women walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman, and she took it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, 'This is one of the Hebrews' children.' Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, 'Shall I go and call a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?' And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Go.' So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages.' So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because she said, 'I drew him out of the water.'" This is a very common story, of course. This is the beginning of the redemption of the nation of Israel from 400 years of slavery. And God is, in his providence, going to be unfolding a plan, as unlikely as it would seem, but unfolding it nonetheless, which will bring Moses at the age of 80 and at the right opportunity to come and to tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go," and allow them to walk out with spoils of gold and a nation born in today. I believe it has parallels for Mother's Day as well, and for the love that mothers had. If you remember your Bible history, there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. And in time, the Hebrews began to be persecuted, began to be forced into slave labor to keep them down because they were growing so plenteous and so prosperous that they could become a military threat to Egypt itself if they so desired to revolt. There were different things that were tried to keep them subdued. But Israel continued to grow in population, and so finally the Pharaoh said, "Drown every Hebrew child born in the Nile, but let the daughters go." Obviously, you cannot build an army of resistance if you don't have men. And so they were seen as a military threat. But the threatenings of human beings do not concern the power of an almighty God. In the midst 2 people, Amram, Jochebed, 2 from the tribe of Levi that would later serve in the temple service. Had a son. She bore a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. Now, I don't think that means if she saw that he was an ugly child, she would have not cared. But I think something is going along in perhaps parallel with Genesis chapter 1. The Bible says in Genesis 1:31, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day." It was very good. The creation of God was very good. That's from the Hebrew tob, and tob is used here for fine. He was a good child. Just as God's original creation was very good, so too with Moses the beginning of the Israeli nation was very good. He was a good child. He was a fine child. And in defiance of the decree of Thutmose the First, she kept him hidden for 3 months. Babies are a mystery to us. Even though we know more about babies and their development than we ever have in human history, it still staggers the mind when a person realizes that he was formed in his mother's inward parts. First trimester of a baby, 3 weeks. Your baby in the making is a ball of cells called a blastocyst. The blastocyst already contains a full set of DNA from which you and your partner, which determine sex, eye color, and other traits. You're already you at 3 weeks. You're already you when you become a zygote, but that's for another day. 4 weeks. The ball of cells has officially become an embryo and is about the size of poppy seed. Over the next 6 weeks, all of your baby's organs will begin to develop, and some will start to function. 5 weeks. Your baby's tiny heart begins to beat at twice the rate of yours. His entire body is only about the size of a sesame seed. 6 weeks. Facial features like eyes and nostrils are beginning to form, and little buds appear where arms and legs will develop. 8 weeks. Arms and legs are growing, and your baby now has little fingers. Don't you love a baby's little fingers? As well as a nose and upper lip. He's moving quite a bit now, but you won't feel it. He's about 5/8 of an inch long and weighs hardly anything. 0.04 of an ounce. 9 weeks. Eyes have developed, though. Your baby's eyelids are fused shut for now. She's lost her quote-unquote tail and is starting to look more human. 10 weeks. The embryo has become a fetus. His vital organs, such as kidneys, intestines, brain, and liver, are starting to function. Tiny fingernails and toenails are starting to form. 11 weeks. Your baby is almost fully formed. Her bones are beginning to harden. She can hiccup, though it's too soon for you to feel it. 12 weeks. You can hear your baby's heartbeat at a prenatal checkup. You may already have heard it at an early ultrasound. Your baby's just over 2 inches long and weighs about 1/2 ounce. Second trimester, 14 weeks. Your baby's kidneys are producing urine, and he releases it into the amniotic fluid. He can make facial expressions and may have discovered thumb sucking. 15 weeks, your baby can see light that filters in from outside your womb, even though her eyelids are still shut. 16 weeks, your baby's sex may be detectable at your mid-pregnancy ultrasound, which typically happens between 16 and 20 weeks. 18 weeks. If you haven't felt your baby move yet, you probably will in the next few weeks. It'll take a couple of weeks longer for other people to feel your baby's movements from the outside. 19 weeks. Your baby can hear your heartbeat and sounds that come from outside your body, such as your partner's voice. Her skin is wrinkly and is covered with a protective waxy coating. She measures about 6 inches from head to bottom and weighs about 8.5 ounces. 23 weeks, your baby's sense of movement has developed so he can feel the motion if you dance. His sense of hearing continues to improve. You may sometimes be able to see him squirming under the surface of your belly. 24 weeks, your baby's taste buds are developing. Her brain is growing very quickly, and her hair may be growing too. She's almost a foot long and weighs just over a pound. 27 weeks, your baby's lungs are developing, but won't be fully functional for several more weeks. He's practicing for them on the inside by inhaling and exhaling amniotic fluid, sleeping and waking up at regular intervals, opening and closing his eyes, and sucking his fingers. Third trimester, 28 weeks, your baby may be dreaming. She has eyelashes, and her eyesight is improving. Billions of neurons are developing in her brain. She weighs about 2.25 pounds and is about 15 inches long, head to heel. 32 weeks. He's grown cute little fingernails and toenails. Your baby is also starting to plump up in preparation for birth. He's almost 17 inches long, head to heel, and weighs about 3.75 pounds. 34 weeks. Your baby's lungs and central nervous system are continuing to develop. Her skin has become soft and smooth, and she's filling out and getting even rounder. She's almost 18 inches long and weighs about 4.75 pounds. 37 weeks, your baby is now considered early term. Babies born now usually do well, but ideally, he'll stay in your womb for a couple more weeks to give his brain and lungs time to fully mature. 39 weeks. Your baby is now considered full term and is ready for life outside the womb. The average weight of a newborn is about 7.5 pounds. The average length is about 20 inches. Babies are a miracle. They're a miracle from God. Even when you can break it down in such incremental fashion, it's still staggering to behold the miracle of birth of this tiny little baby, just like his parents. Jochebed had a boy that no doubt she wanted very much, but was scared to have. Frightened because if it was a boy, then the decree was that he was to be killed. And yet, the maternal sense is so strong. And I dare say the vast majority of women so much want to be mothers. Your mom thought about you as you were developing in her womb. And she touched her baby bump, talked to you, sang to you, pondered things in her heart like the Virgin Mary did. Full of plans, full of dreams, full of desires, full of love. In fact, there is a Hebrew word for compassion that literally it means womb. In other words, through observation, people were able to see the love that a mother had for her unborn baby, still in her womb, and how she doted after it and how she cared for her child, not yet here introduced to the world. And thus, in the Hebrew language, the word raham moved and changed strictly from womb to also include compassion. Jochebed tried to hide her son as long as she could, because that's what mothers do, try to protect their children as long as they can. But unfortunately, sometimes there are limits to what mothers can do. And it's always a painful, painful time in the life of a mother when she wishes she could protect her children, but she knows that there are some areas in which she cannot. She most certainly was not going to kill her baby. So she devised a daring plan. She's going to put him in an ark of safety. And that's exactly what it was. Basket made of bulrushes and daubed with bitumen and pitch. It was just a miniature version of the Egyptian papyrus boats, and it was, in every sense of a term, a little ark. Now, why? Why would she take her 3-month-old baby boy and send him on his little ark while Miriam stood off at a distance to see what was going to happen? I don't think it was because she was just being merciful, or at least trying to be merciful by not killing him immediately and just saying, well, Lord, just you take him to wherever you want. I think it seems like she had hatched a plan in her mind. Apparently, there was a normal occurrence of Pharaoh's daughter who came down to this section to bathe in the Nile. And so maybe she thought that from Pharaoh's own court, his daughter might have compassion on her son. His sister Miriam stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now, the daughter of Pharaoh, who we do not know the description of, we do not know the name for, it is possible this is Hatshepsut herself, who later would become queen, or it could be equally possible that this was a more minor daughter and not in prominence in the family. But the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river while her young women walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman. She took it. Mothers have to do something else that they don't like. They have to protect their children as long as they can, but they also have to know when to give their children to the world. I remember when I was 17 years old, it was a Sunday morning that I was picked up by a couple of guys, and we were on our way to Mid-America Bible College, 1,000 miles away in Oklahoma City, my freshman year, first semester. Sadly, who was behind? Dad and Mom. And it was Sunday morning, and Mom felt she was obligated to go to church, and so she went to church that morning feeling horrible. She gave up her boy. On Facebook, I see so many times the beautiful young women and the handsome young men. They are in their prom formal wear, or they're walking across the stage and they're receiving a diploma. And you realize the pride, but yet also the pain. And also the wistfulness on mothers' parts, where they say, "Where did the time go?" Unfortunately for Jochebed, she had to give her child to the world quite soon in an attempt to save his life. But whenever the time comes, how it hurts the mother's heart to have to let go. Well, the little baby was found, pulled in by the servant woman. Said the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." How could you tell it was a Hebrew child? Well, obviously through circumcision or through complexion of skin. And so to her surprise, the daughter of Pharaoh surely had all kinds of questions whirling in her mind about, why is this little boy in this little papyrus basket going among the reeds? Miriam, she was sharp on the draw. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a wet nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Well, that would be nice. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the girl went and got her mom. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. What a beautiful story it is that comes full circle. Because Amram and Jochebed could not keep this boy, but they were not going to murder this boy. They couldn't hide this boy. And so it appears that Jochebed devises a scheme to see if Pharaoh's daughter is going to take pity, and lo and behold, she does. And Miriam has been watching the sister for a while, and she immediately runs up, says, "Do you need a wet nurse?" Pharaoh's daughter says, "Yeah." So she goes home, gets Moses' mom. Pharaoh's daughter says, "You take him home, nurse him until he is time to be weaned, and I'll even pay you for your trouble." In the place of death was, in fact, reward. Most certainly reward, because we recognize 80 years later he would lead the Israelites out of Egypt and give them the covenant at Mount Horeb. She had to give her son to the world at an early age, but by the grace of God, she was able to receive him back for a while until it was time to begin his destiny. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, because I drew him out of water, and that's what Moses means, drawn out of water. So she had to give her child. She was able to receive back her child, and then she had to give him again so that he would be the leader and the savior, if you will, of the Israelite people as they marched out of slavery and into a covenant with Yahweh. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. As a family member in the 18th dynasty, it's quite possible that Moses may have learned reading and writing and literature, mathematics, archery, horseback riding, warfare, etc. Entirely possible he became well educated and was quite able to write the Torah. God, in his providence, works things out. but you always have Mom. I'm 45 years old. I was at my parents' house yesterday, and whenever I leave, Mom always has to pack a little something for me to eat to bring home with me. Why? Well, I'm 45. She's almost 69. But Mom's always Mom. Your mom will always be your mom. It doesn't matter if your kids are 70 and 75. Mom and dads are going to call them the kids, because they always are. Mother has a sense of love, a sense of obligation, a sense of devotion. A godly mother has a sense about her in which she never feels that her responsibility is entirely over. Even as she has to let go and give her child into the world, there's always that sense, but I must always be here for him or for her. Mothers are beautiful people. Our mothers sacrificed, and mothers aren't perfect. Some are better than others, but no mother is perfect, including even Virgin Mary, who at one point believed her adult son Jesus was out of his mind. No, moms don't always have the best information to go on and sometimes come up with wrong conclusions. But they try. The godly mother tries to do right. And it's very apt that we take a Sunday and we thank you, ladies, for all of the sacrifices you have willingly undergone for your children. I would also like to say something to those who have wanted to be mothers, but for some reason have not been able to have children. I know of a lady I graduated from high school with, and she may not even go to church today because it hurts. You see, most, I would think, have the natural inclination to motherhood and the pain and the scarring on the human soul when, for whatever reason, they cannot conceive. I cannot tell you I know how it feels, because I have absolutely no idea of that pain. I do want to tell you that I'm so sorry. And I do want to tell you that even though you may not biologically have been a mother, chances are very strong people have looked up to you as a mentor or even a mother figure, and that you have some spiritual children that you have helped along the way. So whether you have one child, several children, or no child, I am here to honor every woman in this building today. You are such an important part of literally holding civilization together. And I thank you for the sacrifices that you make, that the next generation may be prepared as best as possible for the challenges. Heroes of the Bible all had mothers. Even Jesus had a biological mother, not a father, but a mother. Thank you. Thank you for what you have done sacrificing for your children, sacrificing for others. Those long, sleepless nights, tossing and turning with a colicky child, to helping a girl become a young lady and learn how to deport herself as a young lady, to teaching boys how to be young gentlemen and to treat women like ladies. Thank you. Today I offer a special blessing for all of the ladies in this congregation. May the very grace of Jesus Christ flood you today. And may you feel something of the love that your families and your God have for you. As I conclude my message, I recognize that, again, there is no perfect parent, mother, or father. Even Mary wasn't perfect. Sometimes there's regret because parents think, oh, I could have done more or I should have done differently. Understand that every parent feels that very same way. And if you need to forgive yourself for not being the perfect parent that you never could be in the first place, forgive yourself today and walk on. And if you had a parent or a mother that you felt kind of dropped the ball on you, she was doing the best she could. That might not be enough, but she was trying in how she knew to cope. Forgive her in Jesus and walk on. And I conclude this message by saying, the altars are open for anyone who wishes to pray about any reason. If there is forgiveness that you need, forgiveness is offered here. If there was a new start that you need, a new start is offered here. If it's simply praise you wish to give to God, praise is offered here. Let's stand.